Oh, it's the double click. To um, all righty. Hello.
Hey Cheryl, I'm haven't got a chance to eat yet. Normally I eat beforehand, but I'm away from home right now in an Airbnb. I just got unpacked, so I'm probably gonna turn my camera off at some point and eat some dinner while we're on this call.
Okie doke.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. It's really small.
Hey there.
Hey. So tell me with this camera, does it seem like all red over here?
A little bit, yeah. What's your
It's so
lighting?
weird.
Oh,
It's
the
not
more
the
you,
lighting. It's like the camera or something.
the farther you go back, the worse it gets.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Ugh.
Sorry.
No, and this means I can't really use. I have to figure out what this camera's doing. Hello. Let's see. Gallery and- oh, Valerie's in here twice.
Double the fun, Cheryl.
Let's see. Did you guys do the global coaching study, by the way? I'm going to put the link in the chat. Oh, it's personalized link. Oh, here's the general one. So it's till the 14th, but they're looking for more coaches to take it. I guess didn't have a whole lot of, or enough. I shouldn't say a lot, but I don't think they have enough. So they're asking us to share it. So that's the study. And they're asking everybody to fill it out. So that goes to the global, the global coaching report that comes out every other year. That'll go to that.
How many coaching hours count towards that? I'm just kidding.
None. Zero zilch.
We're starting with the coaching sessions tonight, or what are we starting with? Just because I might have to move at some point.
We're going to start with material,
Okay.
and then we'll go into the coaching. And Deanna said she was going to be a couple minutes late. She had a funeral to go to, so I'm not sure she's going to make it. Oh, and then Holly is not able to make it. So we have, I think, yeah, Georgie's though. Okay, Kim should be popping on any second. Deanna should be popping on any second. Okay. So while we're not going to wait, but while we're getting started, any questions coming up for you guys, material wise, so far in the course? No.
Actually, yeah, I haven't looked lately. Did you put the assignment book in yet, or are we still developing that?
You're still developing it, but
Okay, it's not a rush.
I
I'm
only have
just
2 more
checking.
chapters, and I
I
will
was
be
just
done.
making sure I didn't miss something.
No, it's not in
So
there. I'll let you know when it's in there.
cool, thank you.
But yeah, I only have 2 more chapters left, and then I'm done the course. And I'll be uploading 5, 6, 7, and 8. They came back from the editor, and then the last 4 will be at the editor, and then they'll go up. Then I'll do the assignment book, and I'll only take 5 minutes after I have those last 2 chapters done. And then so we're going to be putting the application in probably the end of next week, for the pre-accreditation, which will make, the actual accreditation go really quick. I was trying to remember, Lori, do you remember how long after the how long after the level 1 course ended that we got the full accreditation, since we had it pre?
It was pretty soon. At most 6 weeks, I think.
Okay, that's what I thought. 4 to 6 weeks. And it really depends on how many they have in the queue, like how many people are already applying. And my impression is there's not a whole lot of people that have started level 2 this first quarter, which is when we started it. So hopefully we're only waiting a couple weeks, but usually the pre only took about 4 weeks. So we weren't, we got it before the course was over. And that should be the case this time as well. And then the only thing I have to turn in once the course is over for the full accreditation is the final, I have to turn in two final evals that passed at a PCC level. And then I have to turn in a couple of the in-class observation sessions that we do. Everything else will have already been submitted. And so then what happens is they send those 2 recordings to assessors, and the assessors assess it. And then they come back and they tell us, no, we get priority over, anybody else submitting recordings, like anybody that's doing portfolio pass or anything, we do get priority over them. So that's good. But if they already have, if they already have a bunch assigned, then that could slow it down a little bit. But I really don't expect it to take that long. And then you guys will be able to go ahead and apply for your PCC as soon as you have your hours all together. So excited for that.
Cheryl, I lost you a little bit on sort of, so your program, this program has to get accredited before we qualify. And that's what you're talking about, is your program?
Yes. Well, it has to get the full accreditation before you can apply as a level 2.
Level 2 being PCC?
Yes.
And is it, just to confirm, once we apply, that stops the clock? Like, I need to get into it before my ACC expires,
Right. Yeah. And when's it expire? The end of June?
something like that,
Yeah. And then you also have a 2-month grace period.
right?
Yeah. So
But it's from the time you submit an application, right? You start the process, is it?
the level 2, you mean? I'm sorry. What was the question?
Well, so, okay, let's assume my ACC expires June 30th. If I apply before, so June 20th, I apply, but I have to go through, like, whatever process it takes before I can take the test and get approved and da-da-da and whatever. But does it stop the clock when I apply or when I get it?
So it stops the clock when you apply, but you get a 2-month grace period before you have to apply.
Yeah,
So if it's June 20th, it actually winds up being August 31st. You get that 2-month grace period before you have to apply again.
2 calendar months. Okay, good.
Yeah, 2 calendar months. So, which that will be plenty of time. Yeah, we definitely, I want to say definitely, but we probably most likely 99% won't have it by the end of June. But I'm hoping by the end of July, mid-August, we should have it. Definitely, I like I said, I'm going to check my emails. I can tell from when we apply to when I got the notification from the ICF representative. I'll see how many weeks it took after the course ended to get the full accreditation. But we're definitely going to have partial pre before the end of the course. So it, again, should go pretty quickly.
Does the time stop for the coaching hours too, like the look back? So if I were to submit, and I know you said, I'm just going to use this because it's easy, right? July 1st. So that means that my coaching hours could go back a year and a half, which would be January 1 of 2024.
Your coaching hours can go back from the first day that you took your first certification course.
But the 50 hours, you have to have 50 hours.
Oh, 50 has to be in the last 18 months of the day that you would apply.
The day I apply.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, it would be, if you're applying in July, it would be January of the previous year.
Okay.
Yep. For 50 of the hours. Hi, Kim. Just taking questions if anybody had any on the materials or anything that we're doing. If you have anything. All right. All right. So we are on chapter 4 today, and I realized that I should probably, what is that? Look, I gotta stop. I don't like this computer down here. I'm gonna have to not do this again. Because it just, when did it close out? It closed out all my stuff. Oh, there it is. So I realized that I have this chapter for that is mastering intuition and somatic awareness, and not realizing that I should have probably put a definition for somatic coaching, somatic awareness. And I didn't, so I'm going to add that in. But so first I want to explain somatic coaching basically is a holistic approach that integrates the mind, the body, and the energy systems to be able to help clients reach like deeper levels of transformation. So things that can help with trauma, challenges, emotional patterns, things along those lines. So that's what we're talking about when we look at coaching and like somatic coaching or coaching and somatic presence, or there's different terms that they use, but that's what they're talking about, is that kind of holistic approach that looks at all of it, the mind, body, and the energy systems.
And you said to reach greater, sorry.
It helps the clients to get deeper levels of transformation. And then that goes towards like trauma, challenges, emotional patterns, like emotional intelligence does the same thing, right? Emotional intelligence helps the clients go deeper, reach deeper levels of transformation, also helps them to address challenges, trauma, and emotional patterns. So they work really well hand in hand, somatic coaching and emotional intelligence. Okay, and you might even see that, at some point you might see coaches that call themselves somatic coaches. That's their niche, like emotional intelligence coaches. It's the same thing. It's a niche. It's just more of a holistic approach. Emotional intelligence is also considered a holistic approach, just so you know, because it takes into account the emotions. That's considered holistic. All right. So this chapter is mastering intuition and somatic awareness. And one of the main things that we want to understand when we look at this together, intuition and somatic awareness, is that coaching isn't just about what's being said, it's about what's being felt, right? Emotional intelligence is about things that are being felt as well as the awarenesses that are created. So these go really well hand in hand. And so as a coach, you're able to tap into intuition and somatic awareness when you, of course, have developed that in yourself. And, you're doing that through this course, through learning these things. And, if you take a deeper dive, that will help you as well. But when we have that intuition and that somatic awareness, it really allows us to be able to have, it taps into our intuition more, and we're able to read beyond the words of what somebody's saying, and really tap into what's their energy level, what's missing from what they're saying, what is, how can we interpret what they're saying, not so literally. So we're looking at the meaning behind it, and looking at the emotional piece to it. So that might mean that we recognize things that are going on with them through their emotional and their physical experiences. And that could also mean things like body language, facial, language or recognition, things along those lines. They're all going to play a part into developing intuition and developing that somatic presence, basically. And hi, Deanna. We are just starting out chapter 4. And I just lost my screen. And so when you think about learning to look at how emotions, energy shifts, and bodily cues can help us to help our clients, what we're looking at is helping them to get deeper awareness. Deeper awareness segues right into deeper transformation. Because the more aware we are of things that are going on in ourselves, and our clients are more aware of what's going on in themselves, the easier it is to transform to something, right? To make that change. And so we want to be able to really master that intuition. We want to be able to rely on our gut, when we're in conversations. And that's basically how I talk about it, right? It's our gut. What is that intuition? It's how we feel, or what we feel is really going on in our gut. We're like, there's something else that they're not saying, or there's something there that is just bothering me. What is it? Like, what is it about what they said that's just bothering me? Or why did they say such and such, but then their body was like it sounds like they're in a good place, but then their body's all slumped, and their facial expressions aren't happy, or whatever the case is, right? We want to be able to pick up on those things, especially when it's apparent, a good amount of the time. Now, there's times when you're not going to have that. Some people are good at hiding, and if they're hiding in the coaching, it's difficult. I think you'll still wind up with a little nagging feeling about something, but it won't be as apparent to somebody who doesn't hide, but maybe is not aware of it, right? So when people aren't aware of things, and they're not trying to be, they're not trying to hide it, we can pick up better. Our intuition is more in tuned. If they're trying to hide things, that becomes difficult. And I'm not talking about really difficult clients in this sense, but you will have a better feel for it either way. So kind of keep that in mind. The other thing to think about is there's I kind of touched on this, but there's a connection between intuition, somatic awareness, and emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence supports your intuition and supports somatic awareness. So it does both. So then that just creates a circle, right? So you have this connection between these three pieces. And the more emotionally intelligent you are, the more attuned you become to both internal signals, and of your own and of your clients. So it becomes a pretty strong and effective tool to have that intuition that's been enhanced with somatic awareness and emotional intelligence. And something I want to mention really quickly that you're going to see starting with, I don't know if I started it in here. I think I started it in 5 actually. Is that I'm definitely tying it to the emotional intelligence sub areas, but also going to be tying them to like coach tips on how to really get clearer on these connections. And so I have started that I did that through, chapter 5 going forward. What I'll do is I'll go back and add those into the first 4 and just re-upload those new ones so you can kind of see those connections a little bit better. It was one of the enhancements that I liked as I was going forward. So I'm going to go back and fix that. But anyway, so when we look at how EQ doesn't enhance intuition and somatic awareness, if we have like the self-awareness where, we look at that sub area of emotional self-awareness, the more you understand your own emotions, the better you can differentiate between a true insight, intuitive insight and a personal bias. Because remember, we talked about bias. Bias is very important to identify when we can, right? To really dive deep into it, because that's going to influence your understanding of what's happening with your client or what they're saying or not saying. And it's going to influence your questions. It's going to influence the coaching process for you. So the more you can identify bias and address it, the easier that's going to be on you for your coaching, but it's also going to be more effective for your clients. And then we have interpersonal awareness, where the EQ for sub area for that is empathy. So when we're recognizing nonverbal cues and emotional energy in clients, we're able to pick up on those things that are unsaid, which again enhances that intuition and that attunement, somatic attunement. And then the other EQ piece is the self-expression, and the sub area is emotional expression. So it encourages clients to tune into their bodily sensations and articulate their feelings with more depth. So I don't know if you've ever been in a coaching session where I have a coach that does this. It says, okay, where in your body do you feel that? Why is it important to help a client identify where they feel something? Well, if they're feeling it in their stomach, that's typically anxiety, right? So there's something anxious going on there, right? If they're feeling it in their head, it could be tension. You know, if there's just different things that you can help clients understand about where they're feeling different tensions or different emotions in their body. So we want to help them to attune into their body. And some people aren't aware of it, but when you ask a question about it, they're like, oh yeah, my stomach's clenched. And they don't realize that they're ready to fight, or they're ready to flight or whatever, like fight or flight. So when we can help them to really get into, you know, being able to express how they're feeling and where it's showing up for them in their bodies, then we're able to help them to express themselves more, which helps them to get over, you know, make the transformation, to get over a challenge, to move forward quicker. And then the last one there for EQ is the decision making, and the sub area is reality testing. This helps, it really helps us to access whether our intuition is grounded in the client's reality rather than making assumptions. So that, of course, we do through questions, right? We have a feeling about something and we ask a question about it. And that's, we're testing it, right? We're doing the reality testing there by saying, this is what I think is going on. Let me ask that question. And then the client either, you know, substantiates that or not. But, and that actually helps us to rely on our intuition more when we're right, when we are right, because the client will tell us when we're right. And then we're like, okay, yeah, so that made sense to me. I felt that. And I asked the client and I got that confirmation back. And it makes you more confident to do it again and start to rely on your intuition. Okay. So how does somatic awareness strengthen emotional intelligence? Well, when you notice and name physical responses like breath changes, posture shifts, again, facial expression changes, especially things like, you know, breath changes like sighs. When somebody sighs over something, or some people have might develop a little bit of a nervous, I mean, tick for lack of a better word, but you know, like they might puff, or they might you know, they might tilt their head a certain way, and you can start to see that there's a pattern, right? So when you start to see those physical changes, and you're able to, you know, name them, point them out, then you can help clients become more emotionally self-aware, because now they'll know that when they get upset, like they turn their head a certain way, or when they get upset, they're, you know, they're puffing out, or, you know, whatever the case is, right? Or they sigh, or they, whatever, they make some sort of a verbal, you know, noise, whatever that is. So there's different things to look for, but we want to be able to pick those things up from the client and bring it back to them, right? Bring it back to them and say, I noticed when you said such and such, you kind of held your breath. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And that helps them to notice that they've done, you know, that there was something there. There was some kind of indicator there. And that will help them the next time that indicator comes up, for them to be aware of what's going on emotionally in their, you know, in their, or even in their thoughts. So in their body or in their thoughts. And then clients who feel disconnected from their emotions often experience emotional expressions through body language first. So especially if they can't articulate emotions or emotional responses, it's going to show up in their body first. And so when you help to bring that awareness around it, again, it opens up for future. I didn't know I was frustrated, but now I know when I do, you know, when I clench my stomach, that means, you know, I'm anxious about what's coming up or whatever. You help them to identify those things, and it helps them to grow, right? So when we help them to recognize their body's signals, that creates self-awareness and self-expression. And then the last piece there, encouraging clients to process emotions through the body. So noticing where they hold the tension strengthens their stress tolerance and emotional regulation. So it just helps them to learn from themselves and move forward. So it's asking them. So you might see, like, I usually get it from a facial expression first, right? If I see somebody's like nervous or anxious or something, I'll see it in their expression and I'll say, what are you feeling right now? I see that you look a little bit stressed. Well, my stomach feels really tight. Okay, so how often does your stomach feel tight around this subject? Then you can start exploring it a little bit because now you've made a connection for them. That when they talk about this subject, their stomach clenches, that creates anxiety or frustration or whatever it is for them. You've asked around it, and now you can ask them how they can apply, like when they feel it, what can they do to release some of it, right? To start recognizing and being able to transform how it affects them or how they react to it. So it's just questions. So you're good for you're going to see something first. Usually that's going to trigger it, or maybe it's something they say. That might be possible too. You might not see tension in their face. They might say something and you're like, oh, that sounds like there might be something there. And you might say, oh, you just said such and such. What came up for you when you said that? And they might say, oh, my stomach was feeling a little bit clenched, or, I felt the little butterflies or whatever. And so then you can start to question it that way. Okay. So I have an example in your chapter, and it says, a client struggling with decision making appears tense and it keeps crossing their arms. Now, crossing their arms, crossing their legs, that is closed off, right? That's them trying to separate themselves either from you or their environment or a subject. So instead of asking what's stopping you from making a choice, you might say, I noticed you're tensing your shoulders and crossing your arms. What is your body telling you right now? And this kind of allows the client to think through and explore those things that they're the reactions that they're having, their body's having, before talking through the specifics. It's now, I want you to notice what's going on in your body and how can we release some of that so then you can think about, you can start the intellectual process. But let's get rid of the physical, or not get rid of, but let's, do what needs to be done on the physical responses first. And that usually releases tension, even if it's just, 50% or whatever. It might not get rid of all of it, but it'll get rid of enough of it. And then through that awareness, it helps them to be aware of it again in the future, get rid of some more until they don't have that reaction anymore because they've developed some tools around it. Okay. So the next section is talking about the role of intuition in coaching. So intuition in coaching is often described as a sense, like you sense something, right? So like you feel, you kind of have a feeling, whether it's in your gut or you kind of have, like some people talk about, like a little tickle in the back of their neck or, whatever that is for you. But you have some kind of a sense of, knowing something's going on without actually being told, right? Anything that's verbal. And sometimes doesn't feel very logical either. But you just know there's something there. So it's the ability really to pick up on some kind of unspoken emotion, energy shifts, whatever, and deeper meaning in what a client is sharing or not sharing. And when intuition, intuition can feel abstract. Because you can't, like, it's hard for me to even really describe it. Like, I just describe it as a feeling, like there's something there, there's something nagging there or coming up for you. It is a skill that can be developed. I might not have all the language around it. I'm sure there's experts out there that do have the language around it, but it can be developed. You can develop intuition. And I've had coaches tell me, I can't figure out when anybody's like, I can't tell you if they're, what they're feeling around this. Well, how do you develop that? Well, emotional intelligence is the first piece. That's how you develop that. You develop your emotional intelligence. That's going to increase your intuition. And then practicing that. Again, looking at the somatic side of things, practicing that, practicing having intuition actually increases intuition, as long as you do the check. So if you have any kind of a suspicion and you check on it and you get that validation back, then you're like, oh, I had some intuition there. Makes you more confident. It's really confidence, I feel, that plays a big piece in not recognizing our own intuition because we're not confident around it. And we don't want to feel like we're wrong or like, or something, or that we're silly or whatever it is, like, oh, I got that wrong type of thing. But our open-ended questions are an exploration. We're not saying, oh, this is definitely this. We're saying, I noticed this. So you're saying what's real. You noticed something in the client. What does that what does that bring up for you? Or where is that showing up for you in your body? Or where is that creating obstacles for you, right? You're throwing back a question based off of what you're feeling, and then you'll know whether or not it was right or correct. So it is a skill that can be developed. And how exactly does intuition enhance coaching? It helps you identify what's not being said. It allows you to sense when a client's holding back. In some cases, it might help you to know when clients are hiding things, like not holding back, but actually hiding things, or not just holding back, but actually hiding things. It allows you to ask deeper questions, things that are going to resonate better with the client. And it strengthens your ability to trust your instincts, like I was just talking about, while staying client-centered. So how can you develop your intuition as a coach? Well, a big part of it is deep listening. And having those deep listening skills is, very important in coaching anyway, but it's definitely going to lead to better intuition. Presence is the other piece to that. Listening and presence go together. The more present you are with your clients, the deeper your intuition is going to be. But focus on what the client says, how they say it, and what is left unsaid. Those are the three pieces when you're listening. What they're saying, what they're actually saying, how they say it, and what's left unsaid. Those are three pieces of deep listening that can give you a whole ton of information before you even have to ask your next question. The other piece is to stay curious. Obviously, this is very important in coaching. So instead of dismissing a gut feeling or dismissing a little nagging feeling, explore it with the client through those open-ended questions, which I just talked through. And then always pause before responding. So, I talk about giving 10 seconds, but, you don't have to sit there and count 10 in your head. But you want to, get used to what does 10 seconds of silence feel like, and give that for your clients. So give some space for you, but it's also space for your client. But in that time, you're checking in with your own intuition or your own feelings or your own gut before asking that next question. And that's allowing the client to, after a client answers a question, sometimes there's something lingering there, right? And if we come back too quickly with a question, we could create a situation where they lose that extra that they were going to give, right? Or that tail end of what they were thinking or feeling. And so that 10 seconds also gives them the opportunity to finish a thought or add on to a thought. So there's a lot of different reasons to give that 10 seconds or that space. Again, it doesn't have to be exactly 10 seconds, but to give that space. It's for you, it's for them, and it just makes for a better conversation to give the space. And then the fourth piece is to reflect on past sessions. So consider moments when your intuition was accurate and how it guided the rest of the session, or how it guided you to conduct the rest of the session. I don't mean guiding the client. I mean guiding the actual session piece, like the piece that you do. And again, this helps accumulate and validate your intuition. And that's going to give you confidence, and that's going to help you to move forward and be more confident with it, with your intuition. So an example here I have is a coach senses hesitation in a client's voice, despite them saying they are fine about a situation. So instead of moving on, the coach follows their intuition and asks, I hear you saying you're fine, but I also sense something else underneath. What else is present for you, or what else is coming up for you? Or, again, your language and how you would ask that question, but just giving something that allows the client to explore deeper the emotions that might be coming up for them. And then maybe they didn't initially recognize it, but because you stayed there, they now are able to recognize it more or get a better feel for it. And they're not dismissing it. So that's a big piece too, is that, like, sometimes clients will dismiss things. And we just go we might just follow and go right with it. And so we miss opportunities to help clients get deeper and make more connections and transformation. So if we can slow it down, there is no rush in a coaching session. If we can slow it down, we are going to do the client like we're going to give the better outcomes for the clients, and we're going to do ourselves a favor by slowing it down. And one of the other recordings that we're going to listen to in our group coaching or group mentoring, you're going to see lots of space in that one session that the coach gives. And some people feel uncomfortable listening even to somebody given that much space, but it did so much for the client that, it was the PCC recording, passed to the PCC. And, I'll give you that to listen to during our class, but you don't have to do it that much either. I'm not saying you have to go to the extreme, but it does have better outcomes when you're able to give that space. Okay. Questions so far?
Can't figure out my unmute. I do have a question. So when you say so I hear you saying you're fine, but I also said something else underneath. What else is present for you? Is that not assuming, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So put the word might.
Okay. Yeah. What else might be present for you or something like that?
Yeah. And so, you have to watch the language piece. And it depends on your relationship with the client as well. So if you want to soften it so it doesn't sound like we're making assumptions, then you might say might.
Can I give a good example?
Yes.
I had a coach that came into an organization I was in and was kind of doing like a health assessment. And as part of it, her assessment came back, and it was funny. It came back on me, and she never asked the question, but she said that I sat in the session with my arms folded. So she never asked me about it, but said she was closed off to the session and isn't open to this whole process. And when I saw it, I was like, yeah, I also had a Columbia jacket on and was freezing because that conference room is so cold, right? So instead of asking, she just made a broad assumption, which in general, right? Like it says on your crossed arms, discomfort, that can be it. But when somebody's cold, they also hug in to try to keep their body heat in. So it was kind of an interesting, Yeah,
but she should have asked.
Yep.
I see that you're sitting, your arms are crossed and you seem, pulled back or whatever. What's going on for you right now? And it's okay if you ask that and the client says, oh, nothing, I'm freezing. Oh, okay. Now you know, right? So so don't let those things go by and don't make assumptions like that. Yeah, good example. Okay. So I did give some, common kind of somatic cues in coaching. So the physical cue is the first one there is shallow breathing, and the possible meaning is anxiety or hesitation. And your response might be, I noticed your breathing changed just now. What's happening for you in this moment? The second one there, the crossing arms or leaning back, because leaning back is disengaging, right? Like, I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of times I'm sitting up. And if I go all the way back, I'm disengaging from the conversation. So it's important to notice those things. And that could be discomfort, resistance. Sometimes it could be anger, frustration, that kind of stuff. But you can say something like, I sense some hesitation there. What's coming up for you? And then, go ahead, Deanna.
I heard one time that crossing arms not really, well, it could be, but another reason why somebody might cross their arms is self-soothing. Have you ever heard that they're self-soothing? And is that related to, disconnecting? Or talk to me about that. Have you heard?
Yeah, so that is definitely something that could be self-soothing, but typically it's not like a regular arm cross like this. Typically it's more something like this, right? Where they're, or even just like this, they don't have to be moving their hands, but it's more like they're like there's more of a hug going on here than there is this, right? But either one, it could be either one. And if you,
Okay.
even if it is a soothing reaction, you asking that question, what's coming up for you, is still going to give a response that's going to let you know,
Okay.
is it something where they're soothing themselves here, or they're protecting themselves here, or there's that anxiety or whatever, right? So it's important to notice it and then ask the question around it. And just don't assume either way. You're just asking the open-ended question of what's coming up or what are you feeling right now, whatever it is that you're going to ask that the client can then respond to. But that's a good example.
Thank you.
All right. And then the third one there, tightening your jaw or clenched fists. That might not be something you see on Zoom. That might be something that you would only see in person. But for clenched fists, but jaw, like I've seen people, they're like, you could see the jaw muscles moving over here. I'm like, what's going on? Like typically that's a stronger emotion. So it's the possible meaning that they actually give to it when you look at studying body language is suppressed emotions, but sometimes it could be a strong emotion as well. And it typically means to ask a question there. So you could say something like this: what does your body want to express right now? Because we feel like they're holding it back, right? They're clenching and they're not trying not to get it out. Or you could say, what are you holding back on expressing right now? You don't have to say your body if you don't want to, but some kind of a question that's going to help them address that. And then the fourth one there is energized or leaning forward. So again, I lean forward a lot, especially when I'm excited. So I understand that. So it's in excitement or engagement. They want to engage with the people in front of them, and so they're leaning forward, right? And there's excitement in that. So that's probably one of the easier things I think to notice, besides like the crossing of arms. And you could say something like, I see a shift in your energy. What feels alive for you right now? Or I see a shift in your energy. What's coming up for you right now? You don't even have to name it anything. You can just make it a general question. So by noticing and naming these physical cues, we're inviting the client to explore their emotions more deeply without imposing meaning on their expression. That's the key point. We don't want to impose any the meaning that we think it is. We want to ask a question that's going to help the client name it, identify it. Okay. Go ahead.
I've got a resource for y'all if you'd like. It's a movie, it's a TV series, and y'all may have seen it or not, but it's called Lie to Me. And this is where
yeah.
this is where he studies micro expressions, and this is all over this, and it's really interesting because he does, and people hire him to be able to figure out the client and if they're lying or telling the truth before they go to court. And so it's all about micro expressions, and you'll love it. It fits right
Yeah,
in here.
it's an old series, but I love that series, and I love what's his face. I can't even think of his name. Go ahead, Christine.
I know, right, right. Roth, is it Roth?
Yes.
Yeah. There's also a very interesting book called The Gift of Fear. And it
I think
sounds
I know
very
that.
strange, but it's a book that talks about um, how we recognize micro movements in people. And we don't really, how do I say it? It's like a subconscious thing that we notice. But anyways, he has a lot of great information in there. And I've probably read the book like 3 times and the other thing I noticed too, when I think about this, when I was young, I came from a very, very abusive childhood. And it was quite extreme. And my father was very psychologically and physically abusive. And so we learned how to, like, he would discipline us with just a look. And so we knew what every look meant. And it actually developed, unfortunately, because sometimes it's not always good, but it developed this ability to be able to just see the slightest little thing. And it's
Yep.
quite torturous in my everyday life, to be honest. I don't like having that. It also develops though the assumption that you know what the issue is for the other person. So that's the thing you have to take away, like get rid of. But
Yep.
that was the reason we read that book, my sisters and I, because we were like, how do we always understand, that something's going to happen or someone's having an issue without them telling us. And that is something that comes from, I guess, leading a life like that. But that book is really quite interesting, talking about those micro movements and how we translate them.
Yeah, thanks. I'm gonna actually take a look at that book myself. Hypervigilance
Don't read
I
it
should
at
probably
night.
make a
The
book
first
list.
story is pretty unnerving.
For hypervigilance.
No, the gift of fear. It starts out with a story
Oh.
of a woman who's like captured under like the simplest of circumstances. Yeah. So,
Okay, so you read it too.
well, I read portions of. I'm never good at reading whole books. I read parts of books.
Okay. All right, and then hypervigilance is another book that you recommend, though? You don't recommend it, or is that a term that you were using? Oh, what Christine is. Oh, yes. Okay, so yeah, hypervigilance. That could actually name what you were saying. Yep. And what did you say, Deanna?
There's a term that I've just been studying. It's called complex PTSD that y'all may know of, but instead of just PTSD, which means you go to war and you hear these bombs, or whatever that situation might be, that you are triggered like this. But just as who was talking here just a while ago,
Christine.
but the complex PTSD develops over this lifetime because of this emotional and physical abuse. So they have named it now. Complex PTSD. That's something to
Okay.
study.
Thanks. Okay, so let's move to the other section there, the engage and reflect. So what are some other coaching responses to, I gave you examples to the physical cues here. So shallow breathing, possible meaning anxiety or hesitation. What else could you respond with besides what I have there? Somebody give me an example.
Maybe ask them to name the feeling that they're feeling in that moment.
Yeah. So, what are you feeling? Like what are you feeling right now? Or what's going on for you right now? Something like that.
Yeah, I was thinking more along the lines of having them actually, name a specific feeling that they're feeling in that moment. I just think a
Okay.
lot of people don't know how to name feelings. It's just very happy, sad, okay,
Yeah, that's definitely something that you could help, client with is, figuring out how to identify what it is. And name it. Yeah, good. How about the second one there? Crossing arms or leaning back, discomfort or resistance. What else could you do besides the sensing hesitation?
Could you ask, and I don't know, could you say, make a statement like, I sense that your engagement has shifted. Is there something about our conversation that we need to dive deeper into? Or is there something about what we're talking about that, like, what has impacted you to create that change?
Yeah, I would keep it open-ended, so I wouldn't use the is question, but
What
But
is?
yeah, you could say what is, or what has changed or what has shifted for you in the last couple minutes of our conversation, something like that. So you make the comment, the observation, and then follow it up with that. Yeah, I think you can do that easily. How about the third one there? Tightening jaw or clenched fists?
Strategies, pretty much the same.
Okay. Yeah, I think you can. Well,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, I mean, you're noticing something going on and you're trying to probe and get to it and maybe help them to realize it and to, if it's going to get in the way of them moving forward in coaching, you want to try to clear that. And so I'm just wondering what's different about the different signals in how we respond.
Well, I mean, if we want to be as specific as we can when we are diving into them. So, it's really about the observation first, I think is the important piece. So how are you identifying what you're seeing when you're reflecting it back to them and then asking that question? So like the second one there, like I sense some hesitation. What's coming up for you? Or crossing the arms again could be closing off. So you could say something like, I sense that you're withdrawing.
Mhm.
What precipitated that? So you want to be able to make an observation first before you ask that question. Because otherwise it could be taken out of context.
Could you ask if that brings up a memory for you, or would that be leading?
Yeah, I wouldn't
No,
assume memory
no,
because that's leading.
no
We're
memory.
putting something specific to it. We
Okay.
want to keep it, we don't want to be specific as far as like what could be causing it. We just want to make the observation of what we're seeing happening and then asking them to identify it in some way.
Okay.
So for instance, the tightening jaw or clenched fists, again, it's named as suppressing emotions, but it can mean other things as well. So you could say something like, I see that your jaw's clenching right now. What's causing that? I mean, simple question. What's causing that? What do you think is causing that?
Yeah. Like I might say something like around, I'd like to take a moment here just to check in with you to see how you're doing, what's going on for you right now.
Yeah.
Maybe use like a scale from 1 to 10 too, like,
Well, remember, I don't know if you remember, we had a big discussion with Matthew around scales. So we want our clients to be able to bring up the measurements of things, right? Because a scale might be effective for us, but it might not be effective for them. So I would first find out what is the kind of, what is the scale or what is the thing that's going to help them measure? And then you might ask a question around that specifically. But yeah, in general, you could do what you said.
It's so funny you say that, Cheryl. So if you ever end up at a doctor for anything that's in pain, right? They always ask you for the scale of 1 to 10 and they hand you the little smiley face and you're kind of like, and one person says his pain is different for another person. So funny enough, I was working with a trainer yesterday and she says on a scale of 1 to 10, but then she reversed the scale. And so, right, she did 1 being the best and 10 being the worst. Or no, she did 1 being the worst and 10 being the best. And I'm like, yeah. So I think people have a lot of preconceived notions about scales.
Yeah, definitely. And just to speak to a different example that's like that, I have a pretty bad back issue. And every 2 weeks I was going into the spine specialist and they ask you when you first get in, what's your pain level today? Well, my pain levels, if I'm functioning, my pain level on a scale of 1 to 10 is probably a 5. Now, if you ask me how much is it bothering me, like how much does it actually hurt? Oh, well, it's probably a 7 or 8. But if you're just saying on a scale of 1 to 5, how bad's your pain today? Well, it's a 5. It hurts, but it's the same hurt I have every day. There's nothing spectacular about it unless I'm having a particularly something that's out of the ordinary day. And I actually had, so they wound up telling me, well, you're not in a whole lot of pain most of the time. And I'm like, what? And I had to redefine everything for them. I'm just like, yeah, that's not what that means. That means I still get up and go to work. I still, go to the grocery store, go to the doctors. I still do everything I have to do at a 5. If I was at an 8 or a 9, I probably wouldn't be able to do that. I'd probably be in bed. But does that mean I'm not in pain? No, doesn't mean that at all. So yeah, it's important to have the client define what things mean to them, make their own scales versus us giving them a scale. Thank you for that example. Okay. Okay, so the activity there is embodying awareness. So it's just like a little practice thing, and it helps strengthen awareness of nonverbal cues in coaching and develop the ability to observe, describe, and interpret shifts in body language, energy, and emotions, and practice giving and receiving real-time feedback in a supportive group setting. So what we're going to do is, and I left some space on there for you to just do it right on the chapter if you want. Excuse me. We're not going to do this whole exercise, but I do want to take one piece of it. So I just want you to kind of, everybody, to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and perform a quick body scan. So what is a quick body scan? You look at each part of your body and your brain, right? So you picture your head, you picture your eyes, you picture your nose, your mouth, your neck, your chest, your arms, your legs, whatever, and just go through and do that scan. You're going through each piece and notice any tension or emotional sensations or ease. Just kind of make note of those. Maybe write them down on your sheet. And then I want you to think about where do you hold stress in your body, especially if you just picked it up now. If you didn't pick it up now, kind of think back to a time where you know that there was stress, right? Where did you feel it in your body? And how does your body feel when you experience different emotions like anxiety, confidence, frustration, happiness, whatever it is? Identify a couple emotions and how does your body experience it? What goes through your body when you have those particular emotions? And then think about the things that might challenge you when you are feeling emotions in your body, right? So maybe, again, your posture gets, out of whack, your breath, your tone, your facial expressions. What are the things that come up when you are experiencing these emotions? And this is something that you can do with a partner or with another coach, when you're both this activity, where you both can start to become more aware of your own, body cues and emotional cues. So you can do this exercise pretty easily where you're both observing the other. And I just gave some, an example here where you can share what you're noticing about the other person, non-verbally, neutral language, whatever it is. And then check with them. This is what I'm noticing. Is that correct? Do I have that right or whatever? This is more about validating what you're seeing or hearing. And just asking them questions, what physical sensations did they experience as they spoke, and how did hearing the observation that you gave them increase their awareness? And the answer that they gave you increase your awareness. So that's just a little bit of an exercise to do. And then I have this scenario here. So your client says they feel fine about a difficult decision, but their posture's tense. They keep avoiding eye contact. Maybe their jaw's clenching, whatever. And how would you explore what you're noticing with them? So some things to think about. What nonverbal cues suggest that there may be more beneath the surface? So what specifically are you seeing in the nonverbal cues? And then how could you use intuition to explore their true feelings without leading them, which we've already given some examples about. And then what coaching question would best invite deeper exploration? So that kind of follows the chart that we already had up top. So just work through that. What could you do for yourself, your own language, how you would approach something in your coaching, and answer those 3 questions, again, to help develop your own intuition and what's going on with you. The second scenario is the energy shift. So during a session, your client starts speaking more rapidly and gesturing more than usual. You sense a mix of excitement and nervousness. So some questions, maybe what might this energy shift indicate? How could you reflect this observation back without assuming? and what question could help them process their emotion in real time. So again, some things to help you develop that a little bit more. And then integrating intuition and somatic awareness in coaching to effectively integrate both. Practice naming what you notice without assigning meaning. So I noticed your posture shift. I noticed your jaws clenched. You know, I noticed that you leaned back, you crossed your arms, whatever it is, right? What happened just now, or what came up for you right now? So naming it, trusting your instincts while staying non-directive, so not leading. Something tells me that there's a little bit more to explore here. What else is present for you, or what else is coming up for you? And I use the I feel words a little bit more than I do like the somethings, like being vague like that. I say something more like I feel, but not everybody's comfortable with doing that. That's actually an emotional intelligence thing. So once you develop emotional intelligence and you keep developing it, you start to be more comfortable saying what you feel and don't feel, no matter what the situation. And then encouraging clients to do check-ins with their body. So if your body could speak right now, what would it say? What, you know, doing body scans, you know, depending how holistic you get in your coaching, that could become part of, you know, what you do in your work with clients. Of course, that would be a permission-based thing, and it'd be before you do your actual coaching in the session, but it could be something like you say, you know, if we're working on defining emotions and seeing what comes up for us, and even maybe getting a handle on our emotions. If you're working with a client on that, then maybe that's one of the tools that you say we could use. We could use some somatic coaching skills, body scans, what have you. Do you want to incorporate that into our coaching? Which is fine to do at the beginning of a session or at the end of a session. Typically, you wouldn't do it during the session unless something comes up that's really strong and you want to say, do you want to take a break right now and maybe, you know, focus in on some of the emotions that are coming up? And you could potentially do an activity there, just like you would do any other type of activity, just getting that permission. Okay. So
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
I worked with this woman, and she's out of Tampa, but she does a lot of PTSD work with veterans. And she does it through yoga, and she teaches a lot of yoga nidra, which is, right, it's a special certification. But anyways, one of the interesting things as part of it is they do a body scan, and then you get the person, like if something comes to your mind, like you don't make something come to their mind, but if something does come to their mind, and okay, so what if that belief you have or whatever came to mind, what if the opposite of it were true as well? And it's just an interesting process. I was just curious if you've ever seen anybody use that in the coaching realm.
Not really, because that you're assigning something. Usually I've seen that, but not in coaching. And I
Okay.
think because you're assigning something to it, like you're saying, what if this, right? Where in I mean, this is technical maybe, and I'm not sure, but by asking the client, by naming something else, we might be introducing something. And that's what we really don't want to do as coaches, right? So we might ask a more general,
Sure.
open-ended question to say, what else might this mean? Or what else could you do here to make it, you know, the opposite or whatever? Like, however you want to frame it, but something that's going to have them name it without you naming it.
Okay. Yeah, it was interesting. I didn't think, like, for me, what came up, like one of the first times I did it was I had lost a dog, and it was pretty hard for me. And when they asked me to think of the opposite, what came to me was I have a lot of sadness and loss, but I also had a lot of joy with the time that I had with them. Right. So it's like balancing kind of dual emotions running at the same time. But I see what
Well,
you're saying, that that's a different process.
but actually, I mean, there is a way to do that. You could say, how could you reframe that to be positive? I mean, that's just a coaching question. So without being directive in that, you can make it an open-ended question.
Awesome. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I wanted to mention too that one of the things that I really like is as far as how emotions and feelings, like when you go on Facebook and you say you check in how you're feeling, then there's a whole big list of emotions here that's really cool to be able to just a quick list look over. You know, there's grateful, there's joyful, there's alone, there's angry, there's delighted, and it just gives you a real quick list with the emojis beside it. So I think that's very helpful for me to, you know, have that list. You know, of course there's other lists, of course, but it's just a real quick check-in so that
Yeah.
you're able to go, okay, you have all these emotions, you know, and so you're better able to read.
And Marcy, I just wanted to say too that I do workshops for my coaching business, and I gear it towards those specific areas, which I think is a great way to introduce that kind of stuff of reframing. Just
Yep.
putting it out there to you. Just
No, thanks, Kim. That's great. And thanks, Deanna. That's fabulous too. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed that.
Okay. So we're going to move to our coaching. Any questions on the chapter before we move to our coaching? Okay. Have you guys gotten your first buddy coaching or peer coaching done? Yeah. Okay. If you haven't, get on it.
What if you've done your
because-
second one, but not your first one? I'm just kidding, but that is true.
Well, just get the second one or the first one done. But yeah, you're on your this is the second one this week. So, and we're at the end of the week. So, okay. So today we are having Valerie coach Marcy and then Lori coach Deanna. So Valerie and Marcy stay on. Everybody else go off camera and mute. And Val, you're going to have 30 minutes. It's 7:40, so you want to stop around 8:10. And you have the floor.
I think you're on mute.
All right. Hi, Marcy.
Hi. And actually, you're kind of hard for me to hear, so I'm not sure if it's just me.
So, do you want to try turning your volume up? Can you hear
I'm
me
already
better
pretty
now?
far up, I think.
Can you
Yeah.
hear me better now?
Right. That's as high as I can go, so we'll try.
How is this now?
It's okay.
I mean, I can
Yeah,
try.
you sound far away, Val.
Okay, I don't know what's going on because this is what I use every day, but let me go on into my, I'll do the voice from my phone. How's that? Hold on.
In progress.
Oh, now I get you twice.
Okay,
That's perfect. Thank you.
that's okay, just like that? Okay, because I was gonna
Yeah.
get my AirPods. Okay,
No, that's great.
all right. Am I echoing for other people?
Not for me.
No.
Okay,
It's
all right.
fine.
Let's try again. Let me see if I can hear you, Marcy.
Can you hear me? Yes? No?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Whoops. I'm echoing for me. Hold on. Sorry. Hello? Okay. We good?
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, how are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. I'm excited to coach with you, and I'm wondering if you have anything in mind that you'd like to focus on tonight.
Yeah, so I'd like to focus on doing a better job of saving for my retirement.
Can you say that one more time?
Oh, of saving for my retirement.
You want to talk about saving for your retirement?
Yes.
Okay. 1 second, Marcy, I can't, you're gonna help me.
Uh-oh, did we lose her?
She said
Oh.
1 second.
Oh, I missed that. Okay. I thought maybe you were going to get me money.
For your retirement, I love it. I'm sorry, you guys, hang in for 1 second. Haven't been having a problem, but. Who is this? Can you still hear me okay?
You're a
Everybody?
little echoey, but yeah.
Okay, is this all right?
There you go.
Okay, perfect. All right, here we go. So, okay, you want to talk about your retirement.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what it is you'd like to achieve relating to your retirement? What is it? Where should we start when it comes to your No, sorry. What would be what would you like to achieve in relation to your retirement
I want
tonight
to
with
do a
our
better
coaching?
job of, yeah, I want to do a better job of saving. Really focused on, saving and investing appropriately, um, so that I can, maybe leave the workforce a little bit earlier and do um, executive coaching instead of, and really owning my time more versus, being owned by the man, as they say.
Okay. Um, well, so I think I know what you mean by that, but tell me what you mean when you say being owned by the man.
Oh, having a 9 to 5 job, or you have to physically go in and, I mean, you're an employee versus doing your own thing.
Okay. So I'm hearing you talk about wanting to get out of a 9 to 5. So when you're talking about retirement, are you talking about leaving? What could you explain more about what retirement means to you?
Oh, sure. I want to get to a place where I have enough saved that I can leave the workforce probably earlier and do just more part-time things on the side.
Okay.
And so that money is just kind of a nice added, but it kind of keeps me from fully dipping into my full retirement until I hit the appropriate age, the
Okay.
65.
Got it. Well, so what is it? What would represent success for us tonight? What would you like to walk away with?
Yeah, I just think a better strategy for budgeting and how I look at spending on a day-to-day basis. So I think I have a good long-term strategy, and I, work my 401k really well, and I have a financial, like all of that is going. I just feel like I do a lot of probably unnecessary spending on a daily basis, that money could be better served in other places and could get me to the end goal faster.
Okay. So I heard you say a better strategy, and you mentioned a long-term strategy. What kind of a strategy are we talking about for you to establish or for us to figure out tonight together?
Yeah. So in my mind, I kind of have I guess my long-term strategy. It's the day-to-day decisions I make on things I get or don't get and how that impacts my ability to execute my long-term strategy.
Okay. So I think what I'm hearing you say is that you would like a day-to-day strategy for budgeting.
Correct.
So is that what
Or
we're
spending, not
working?
so much budgeting, maybe spending. Yeah.
Spending, okay. So we're looking to establish a strategy for day-to-day spending. Is that what we're
Yeah.
looking for? Okay, great. Tell me a little bit about your day-to-day spending now, if you would.
Yeah, so I'll make you laugh. So today I stopped at Macy's to do my Clinique bonus, right? Because every smart woman only gets her makeup on a bonus, whatever your makeup, whatever is.
Yep.
And as I was there, right, they were doing friends and family, which I didn't know. I don't really shop Macy's that often. And the sales girl told me, oh, they have great towels upstairs that are like $5. And of course, I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't bought towels in forever and mine are fraying. So I went upstairs and bought towels. And then in the end, right, I have these towels and they are super nice. And they were $5 for a bath towel, which is pretty inexpensive. But in my mind, I was like, did I really need new towels? Or could I have just kept using the frayed towels that I had? Because I live alone. I have nice towels when guests come. Does it really matter what I dry myself off with? I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that the store likes you. You come in for a
Not really. I
bonus.
don't shop there that much. Macy's isn't really my they're not my normal. It's not like a normal place I go. It's not a place I don't go. I just, yeah.
Okay. So for a better strategy, which is something you mentioned, what would be different in a situation like that? How would you want to do that differently?
I feel like um it's that impulse buy. And I feel like I need to not do the impulse buys. And especially like I'm drawn to something like a $5 towel that's super soft. I tend to be drawn to things like that. But right, I always go back to there used to be a show on where they cleaned out your house and then they had a garage sale with all of your stuff. And I remember this girl and she bought all this stuff really inexpensive through Bath and Body Works. And the woman was like, yeah, but you put yourself in debt by buying stuff at good prices at Bath and Body Works. Like, when are you ever going to wash yourself with all this stuff? And so in my mind, that kind of rolls through do do I really need it? But it's such a good deal that at $5 and I do have fraying towels, it kind of, right, you can't really argue that it doesn't make sense to buy a $5 towel, but I wish I just didn't make those decisions.
Okay. And so tell me more about when you make impulse buys.
So I did really well for a while because it was really like if you went to the store. So a great way not to do that is not to go to the store. You can't make impulse buys if you're not there. So I got really good at that. And then I feel like during COVID, so much stuff moved to online. I mean, it's hard to scroll even through your Facebook without seeing ads and things being sold. So I kind of insulated myself from it for a while, but now it's kind of back in the open. Because in general, right, if I went to buy something specific like that, like my Clinique, and I did it at a time, I needed it, I went and got it. If I bought a few towels, it wouldn't matter because I'm not so inundated with so much of that stuff. And it'd be so infrequent, but I feel like now I'm just kind of inundated with things.
Okay. And so how does being inundated, what do you want to do about that, about feeling inundated by things?
Yeah, I feel like I somehow would like to have my mind just pause and go, and what if I took this $25 or $30, even if it's seems like an insignificant amount. Like, what if I took that and put it in my savings account or, right, give it, right? Like, what if I saved all those $30 in a month and then turned it over to my financial planner? I think having a better grasp of what that $30 could be, because it's easy to just say, well, $30 is right. Like, that's not really going to make or break me from a retirement standpoint.
How do you feel in the moment when you're making those impulse buys, Marcy?
Yeah, so funny. I think just like the textbook, in the moment, it always feels good. I think afterwards, you're always kind of like, yeah, did I really need that?
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, is there anything else that gives you a feeling like that?
Yeah, when I get another dog.
Okay.
I have 4.
Oh boy.
I'm at my limit though. Yeah.
All right. Well, okay, so you mentioned if
Didn't
you could
answer it really, no. I mean, I think in general, no. I mean, taking on additional dogs also obviously is a pretty significant financial um it's a financial investment too, right? Like on average, a Labrador is $1,500 to $2,000 a year all in, they say. And that's like what the average person would spend on their dog. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so another dog's not the answer, I think I'm hearing you say.
no.
Okay.
I did go through a while. I did go through a period though when would go through a breakup. I would cut my hair, a different hairstyle, and I would get a dog.
Wow. Wow.
The
Okay.
haircut was probably
Well,
cheaper.
so four breakups in the last 10, 15 years, is
Oh
that?
no. No, just for a while. No, then I just realized dogs were better than men. I'm glad there aren't any men in this class, but yeah, I realized dogs are better than men and they always love you. They never point at you and say you look fat or anything like that. And yeah. Yeah.
So it sounds like buying dogs, having dogs make you feel good, and and that these impulse buys make you feel good in the moment, in the short term.
Mhm.
But unlike the dogs, it not necessarily so much later on. And so I'm wondering, is there a
Hmm.
way that you could I'm wondering what you could do to create that pause, almost maybe as a checks and balances for yourself, something that would help you. Well, is it so? Is it when you're making a decision that you let me let me think about, well, okay, you've mentioned a few things. Let me ask you, where would you like to go with some of what you already know? What would be the most helpful to you? You know that you have an impulse to buy, you know that you're inundated sometimes, you know that you if you could pause, sometimes it might serve you. So what would you like to focus on now in creating a better strategy for yourself?
Yeah, I think you kind of highlighted when you started asking me is I forget what the question was you asked me about, is there anything else? Is there anything else I buy on an impulse? Is that what you asked me when I told you I have dogs? Whatever that
Other- Yeah. Other things
was
that
that
make you feel the way you do when you're making that purchase.
yeah. So I think I somehow need a strategy to think about the fact that, right, like um when I the thing for me about impulse buying a dog is yeah, there are moments of regret, right? Because you have a new dog and you got to integrate it and it's a lot of work and it's crazy. Um, but for me, there's long-term joy in having that dog. So um, where the towel has short-term joy, but that maybe pause where I go, what the heck did I do? Like I do with the dog, doesn't ever turn back into, wow, I got a towel. Like with the dog, it goes through a different cycle. It's, oh, I got a dog. Oh, what did I do? Oh, it's all worked out and the dog's great and we have a great, you know what I mean? Like there's that, it's a different cycle. It's like the cycle
Yeah.
stops at the maybe the regret phase or the questioning phase of why did I do that?
Interesting. Interesting. That's very insightful of you, Marcy, I think. And that's interesting. So, how can you apply that insight to this situation to create a better buying strategy?
I'm trying to think how right, like how can I make that pause kind of happen for myself? Because it tends to happen so, so quickly, right? Like, oh, I stopped at lunch to get Clinique. Oh, there's $5 towels upstairs that are super soft. Oh, yeah, there are. And before you know it, right, you're in your car and on your way back to work because you have to make those decisions pretty quick on a lunch break. So I'm trying to think of a way to slow that down and to reflect on that decision.
Mm. How does that idea make you feel?
The idea of being able to slow down feels good. The
Mhm.
concept of how to make myself slow down raises questions because I'm not sure how to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. Well, so you mentioned when you go on a lunch hour that you're rushed.
Mm-hmm.
How else could you schedule your buying that might be better, that might um, be helpful to you to be able to slow down?
Yeah, I think maybe I don't shop at lunch. Maybe that's, not well, I feel like maybe I'm being more efficient with my time and getting a lot done. Maybe that's not the best long-term solution for me if I want to not do the impulse spending.
Yeah. How does that idea feel to you?
It feels good from a spending point and a little stressful from a time management standpoint because I get a lot of things done at lunch.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
on the other hand, if I stopped after work, I would probably be in more of a hurry and less likely to go look at the towels
oh, interesting.
because I'd want to get home because I try to get my dogs out every night.
Okay. So at lunchtime, you're rushed, but not so rushed that you don't have time to check out the towels. After work, you're rushed, but so rushed that you don't have time to check out the towels. I think, right? Did I have
Well,
that
yeah,
right?
I guess it's not so rushed. I guess it's that my higher priority after work is to get home to my dogs.
Okay. 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 So this is really interesting. Um, how how can you now take some of what you've just sort of outlined in your buying patterns and apply it in a way that's going to help you to create a better strategy for yourself?
Yeah, I think I think for the in-person part of it, it's um, not going at lunch and maybe even because I'm not going out, I take a shorter lunch. Because taking a shorter lunch and leaving work earlier still will not stop the desire to get home sooner. Because my desire is always to get home sooner to get the dogs out or to beat traffic, one of the two, or both simultaneously. So if
Beautiful.
I take a shorter lunch and leave a little more early, then I'll be able to get home sooner to get my dogs out. So if I needed to stop, and it's the same concept when I go to the grocery store is not like the issue for me. But if I do need to stop at the grocery store on my way home, I'm like in and out at like light speed because I pick up the few things that I need and I skip all the other aisles because I want to get home.
Beautiful. Okay. So how do you like that as a solution for your in-person buying?
Um, I actually like it a lot. I think it helped me kind of reframe when and how I do things so that it kind of inadvertently stops me even caring about going to look. So it's not like I'm missing out on a deal because the deal's not as important to me.
Mm, okay. Okay. So it gives you some perspective, I think, is what I'm hearing you say, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's relative to other things, and so it becomes less important, and that helps your goal of spending less. So that sounds great. Would you uh, uh, um you mentioned online spending. How would you like to address that part of your spending?
Well, I did hear recently, and I don't know if this is true. I just heard it this week that there's a new thing on Facebook that you can filter out all the ads,
Mm.
and you can just see your friends. So I think that would be a huge piece for me.
Okay.
But I haven't had a chance to. I literally heard it like 2 days ago, I think.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Well, so what would your first step be in exploring that option?
I think either A, just looking online or looking in Facebook and finding the filter, or probably just Googling it, and somebody's probably will just tell you what button you need to push to make it happen. I don't have a millennial that lives in my house that can just do it for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I might have one at work though. I could find somebody at work that could do it for me probably.
Great. So you have some ideas for in-person and online buying. What else would you like to explore in terms of your day-to-day buying strategy?
Um, yeah, I guess just also not right, not being so interested in like the deal, because the deal I think is always what does people in.
So what's a way that you can change your perspective on the deal?
I wish I could get like if I wouldn't buy it normally, if I wouldn't buy it at the regular price, why would I be willing to buy it at the sale price? But I don't know how to like in my mind, like I have that concept, but in practice, that's a hard concept.
Okay, what does it relate to? The difference between buying it at a discount versus whether you would buy it normally?
Because everybody likes a deal. I mean, I think in part everybody likes a deal. I don't know. I just
Mhm.
think I think it's one thing if you would be willing to buy it and then you just waited to see if it went on sale versus you'd never seen it before and you're like, oh, because it's only $5, I'll get it. I feel like
Okay.
it's that point where you can go in debt over $5. If you spend $5 enough times, you can
Mm-hmm.
bankrupt yourself.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I think what I'm hearing you say is if it's something that you already know that you need or that you would buy normally and then it goes on sale, it's different than to see something that looks like a good bargain that wasn't already something you knew you needed. Do I
Yes.
have that right? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So how can you determine when you see a deal whether that's something that you would have bought anyway?
I don't know. I don't know how to see, right? Like, yeah, I'm not sure.
How do you keep track of what you need normally?
I think that for me, I probably don't need anything, right? Like in general, I need food, I need dog food, dog treats. Um, but yeah, I mean, I was thinking the other day, I probably have enough clothes that I could work into retirement and not buy another outfit, especially as right, we don't dress up as much at work anymore. But even if I filtered through my nicer clothes and um, yeah, I could probably work the remaining 5 or 7 years and not need to touch like buy another outfit. Other than styles will probably change a little bit, but some of my clothes are pretty un un not I was gonna say unfashionable. That sounds really bad. Some of my clothes are probably like not really dateable. They're just kind of more standard pieces that you would have,
Okay.
as long as I don't gain weight or lose weight, which I do kind of hope to lose weight. So, but that's a whole different session.
Okay. I think I heard a piece about whether you're going out with an intention to buy something versus you hear about something that's a good deal. So is there anything there that's helpful to you in terms of how the mindset that you have when you go to a store?
Yeah, probably if I just hear it's a good deal, I probably just shouldn't go or not scroll to the page, right? Just because, and now that you say that, I probably should, like, there are certain pages that send me emails and things like that. I should probably just unsubscribe to them.
Okay.
You can't miss out on what you don't know.
Okay. Okay. So part of it sounds like is a timing thing. Part of it sounds like is a what are you exposed to and when, right? And so okay. Marcy, how can we put this together now in a way that you feel like you have a strategy moving forward, that day to day that's going to help you in the long run with your retirement?
Yep. So I think the first one, which was really insightful for me, was don't go shopping during lunch, even if it's just to pick something up really quick. That's not a good option. Maybe take a shorter lunch and go after work because I'll still be in a rush to get home. So I think that one is good, and that also keeps me focused kind of on my dogs, which is that non-regrettable purchase or adoption. They were adopted; they're all rescues. And then I think I need to figure out the Facebook piece and get back to just friends and family on Facebook. And then I need to go through my email, which that'll take a little bit longer because I'm not great at going through my personal email in general. So, and just unsubscribing to stuff. But that will also help me make sure that I'm getting the messages that I need to get in email versus all this ancillary stuff that tends to pop up.
Yeah. Okay. How do you like that plan?
I like it a lot.
Okay. Do you feel like we've achieved our goal for today?
I do.
Okay. What might get in your way of doing these things?
I think if I just feel pressured for time and I'm trying to sneak that thing in over lunch, that'll probably be the biggest hurdle. But I honestly take my lunch to work most of the time. So it's as long as I continue to do that, then that won't be as big of a hurdle.
Okay. Is there any buddy who can help hold you accountable or ways that you can, help yourself set yourself up for success?
I have a coworker that can help me, just kind of that, hey, you need to help me not run out over lunch.
Okay. So what's your next step from this point, Marcy?
I think to talk to my coworker tomorrow and then to start going to look at my Facebook and my email this weekend.
How do you feel about that plan?
I feel pretty good.
Okay. Have we left anything uncovered?
No, I don't think so, but thank you very much.
Okay. You're welcome. Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right. Thank you both.
I don't know how to coach, Cheryl. I don't know how to coach. Questions? What?
So I felt your indecision in there of what to ask. And running through it verbally instead of in your head.
I know.
But
A lot of stuttering.
it's the first in class one, there's a little pressure there. But I mean, overall, I think it was a good session. I don't think it was, terrible. They get a lot of strong points, and those things they'll work out. The not having confidence in the questions that you're asking, right? So I think again, you're in a class that makes a difference. It's the first time in the class that makes a difference for you. Because your recordings typically you're very confident in your sessions. So I'm not worried about that. Okay, so just from a perspective of if we're looking at the markers, I think who did I ask? Lori, I asked you to do the agreement. Now remember, we're on a PCC, so we're looking for more than just the 2, right? So tell me from the agreement standpoint, feedback there.
So she wanted to talk about saving for her retirement and how to not go to Macy's.
Yeah. So, how did Val handle that? Like if you're looking at your marker sheet or your feedback marker sheet, 3.1.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I just closed it by accident. Hold on.
So open that back up, but she's asked, what would you like to talk about?
Yeah. And then, my gosh. Sorry, Cheryl.
That's okay.
My computer takes a hot second. Okay. Geesh. So she asked, like, what do you want to talk about? She said, that she wants to talk about saving for her retirement. And then it's popping up. Sorry, it's working on it. Happy Thursday.
Yeah. Almost Friday. Okay, well, while that's waiting, I'll go
girl.
through it.
Go on.
So
Yeah.
so what would you like to talk about was the retirement, and then Val asked some more qualifying questions that we got to the savings, not spending, to actually help save for retirement. The 2 questions for measures of success, an outcome, what would you like to achieve in our session tonight? So we have the outcome there. What would you like to walk away with? Another outcome / success. I think when we talk about measurements, that we can get a little bit more specific there because we're looking for a measure of success. So something like, okay, so if we have, so she said she wanted to have a strategy. So what, maybe, how will we know that you have that strategy? That gives you a measurement there, right? That's a question for a measurement. So how will you know by the end of the session that you have that in hand? And then importance, meaning, what would it mean for you to have that at the end of the session? Or what is it going to do for you to have that? We want to check in on the meaning. And then the needs to address. So what would you like to focus on to be able to create, yada, yada, yada? That was one of the questions that leads to what, needs to address. And then Valerie did ask a couple different ways, like where would you like to go from here? Or where do we need to start from here? So that kind of goes to the needs to address as well. So overall, I think you got about half the three competency 3 markers. So you want, or 3.5 maybe, or I'm sorry, 2.5. We really want to get on the importance and the measurement piece to firm that up. 4. Oh, I did 4. Okay, so 4. So you acknowledge talents and insights. I think that was really insightful, you said to her. So that was a good way to acknowledge that. I think you were supportive. You were, when she said something that was funny or she thought was funny, you were, there with her. So that's a form of empathy, right? And connection. You acknowledge the terms that she used when she was expressing herself. So that was good. I didn't see too much of the invites to respond and accept. That's usually when you're making an observation and you're asking them to comment on that observation. So there, I don't think there was an opportunity for that really, but so I think for the most part, 4 was done. There's ways to expand on that. You know, part of what we'll talk about when we get to 8 is the progress or learning that happened in the session can also be an area where you acknowledge talent, insight, and in the work done in the session. Because you're asking them what progress they made, and then you comment on that, right? Or you acknowledge it. That helps you with 4.1 and with 8 as well. Yeah, okay, so 5 was Deanna.
Can I go last?
Okay,
Would you let me go
6,
last, please? Thanks.
Kim.
Okay, yeah, so 6.1, custom language, she, you know, asked, how does being inundated, if she used that word, you know, she kind of did it throughout the whole session. I just didn't write everything down.
Yeah.
6.2, so she was talking about, like using like the word like better strategy.
Yeah. I think there would be also the impulse, like
Yeah,
Marcy named it impulse buy. So
yeah,
Valerie picked up on that and explored
Yeah.
what that meant.
yeah. And 6.3, exploring emotions. How do you feel when you, I can't even read my own writing. And you're like, I can think, oh yeah, impulse buys. Is there anything else that makes you feel like that?
Yep.
I didn't really sense anything around exploring energy shifts.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Okay, and then 6.5, explores perceptions, beliefs, assumptions. So yeah, so tell me more about the impulse buys. And then she mentioned about how can you apply that insight. I'm just trying to remember what that insight was. I just kind of did some bullet.
That's okay.
And then yeah, I didn't sense any interruptions from her at all. She gave space. And she succinctly summarized a few times.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good. So yeah, I agree with everything you said. One of the ones for custom language being owned by the man. She heard Marcy say that, and then she asked questions around it, right? So that's something that stood out, something that she said was her custom language. And so Valerie expanded on that. Yeah, and she used the emotional a couple times. She asked, how does that make you feel? How do you feel on several different occasions? Yeah, I didn't see any exploring energy shifts and the perceptions, beliefs, and assumptions. I think there could have been a little bit more exploration there. But I think, one of the things was like, how can you, or what is a way you can let go of that deal? Because I think that's a perception. So I think that was probably an example of that. But I think that, probably could have been explored in different ways because, Marcy did mention, a couple different things about seeing when something's on sale. We can really get a little bit deeper around those beliefs around that. What does it mean to have us, to be something is on sale? Like, how is that the thing? Marcy said, everybody likes a deal, but let's get deeper into that, right? So what does that mean? Everybody likes a deal. Why does that feel like it's something that's important to you or whatever? So we explore those perceptions or those assumptions that we create for ourselves. Okay, and then 7, Christine.
Yeah, sorry, my sheet's virtually empty because I got that really, really late. I was like,
That's
oh my
okay.
gosh. But I just wrote down a couple things actually. I really, really liked where she said, how can you determine if you would have bought that on sale item. I forget how she worded it, but you know what I mean?
Yep.
Where she really wanted her to think about, like if it wasn't on sale, would you, I don't even know how to say what I'm saying, but I think you know what I mean.
Yes.
I hope.
Okay, yeah, I think that was really good. I liked when she said, what would you like to be different in a situation like that? Because that we're questioning, that's the current, we're
Mhm.
questioning about what's going on. What is a way you can let go of that deal? That's expanding outcomes. Ask mostly open-ended questions. Used, well, I didn't put use concise language just because there was that not the
Stuttering?
confidence in it. Yeah, I can't even think what I'm saying.
It
So I didn't put
wasn't-
the
just
But
for the
I
record,
noticed though
it-
that I noticed a
yeah.
certain shift at a certain point in the session where she seemed to be a lot more dialed in and focused on what she was saying and the purpose for the questions that she was asking.
yeah, she definitely had a little more confidence as we got towards the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
At least that's what it looked like, Val.
Plus the
Um,
technical snafu doesn't help anybody. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, that's true. So you started out with the tech stuff, so that can create some flustering but anyway.
So just for the record, I just want to say, I haven't purely coached in probably 3 years. I have coaching clients like crazy, but it's the strictness. And so every time I wanted to ask a closed question or try to lead her somewhere, I'm echoing, I apologize. Anyway, that's what was going on for me. It was, and when I started to warm up, I think is what,
Yeah,
Mm.
I agree with that.
And I also think that she did leave a lot of room for like she didn't do most of the talking.
Yep.
She left a lot of room and for Marcy to be able to, deal with what she needed to.
Yep. Good. Okay, and then back to 5, Deanna.
That would be me. Okay, so coaching the person. Okay, so when she said, now that you know that about yourself, what next? Do you think that that would apply there?
Yep.
Okay, so coaching the agenda, she came back to, well, I forget exactly what the question was, but it's like she got the long-term strategy and the short-term strategy, and then invites the client's choice. Coach partners with the client to supporting the client to choose what happens next in the session. And she does that by, let's see, that was 5.3.
Yeah, she said, what would you like to focus on to create yada yada?
Okay.
I think.
Okay, and on curious about the client, and she said, how can, let's see, how can you create a pause? I really love that part because this is what the impulse was all about. And she correlated it with the dogs, and then she said, okay, so how can you create a pause before? And then I love the way that she went into, are there other ways of spending? And then she got a list of online spending. So yeah, that's silence and pauses. And she did that very well when, how can you create a pause before you actually spin? And then she did pause, and that was just a real powerful place for me.
Yeah. Okay, good. And then 8, I think we definitely had the questions around the post-session activities. We did the challenges, resource, or barriers, did the accountability piece. I think the piece is missing is that we always want to check on, well, first of all, explore progress. So about halfway through your session, just say, we're working towards whatever the outcome is. How do you feel we're making as far as progress, or how's the progress towards that now? So do that about halfway through, and then, what did you learn about yourself in our conversation today? And how can you apply that? Those are two ways to bring in the new learning. How can it support you? You know, there's different ways to ask it, but I want to be able to do that. And then partners to close. I know this is tough for some people, but just saying, how would you like to close our session today? Don't roll your eyes, Christine. I know you got used to it. But that was difficult for Christine. But after you do it a couple times, it's habit and it feels all right at that point. But just say, how do you want to close this session? How can we close this session? Something that's going to allow the client to determine it and not us. Okay, so it was overall, you know, a pretty decent session, Val. Nothing to, you know, get upset about. It's a good session. So some work to be done, but they're all going to need work in the good part of this class. So don't worry about it. Okay, so we're going to go to our second session, and I gotta get better. Here's the thing: you guys get better, and I'm just being honest here. Get better at showing up on time, and so I can start on time, and then we can actually end, you know, with a whole session instead of this rushed one that we're going to have. But I really want us to start by 5 after every class. I'm not going to wait any longer because it's messing us up at the end. I just hate to start a lesson unless the people are here, but you know, we have to do what we have to do. So let's have Lori and Deanna on, everybody else go off. And I'm going to put in the chat who's doing what competency. So just keep a lookout for that in the next minute or two. And Lori, you have
Oh, whoa, sorry. You got off there, Cheryl. Okay, hi Deanna, how are you?
Hey, Lori, I'm doing good. How about yourself? I'm kind of
I'm good.
rushed. I'm on vacation here and business, mixing business with pleasure here. I'm back in North Carolina where I raised my children here. And so I went Spring Hill. And anyway, so it's been a really busy week for me and a fun week as well.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to meet today. So before we get started, is there anything that you need to clear?
Oh, do I need to clear? No, I think I'm good. Thank you for asking.
All right, awesome. So you might see me taking some notes. I'm more than happy to share those with you at the end of this session. Is that okay with you?
Okay, definitely.
Awesome. Okay, so what would you like to focus on today?
Well, okay, so I want to be able to show up with confidence, and just to clarify what that means is that I've got a touch of ADHD, and got a lot of shiny object syndrome, and I'm a creator, and I'm not a follow through person, so I need to know how to follow through. And here's what's going on, because I get my reward through creation. You know, I've got extensive training and coaching. My last coach training was the neuroscience of high flow peak performance, and I've got like 6 other coaching certifications. And so I get my reward through learning and through planning and through putting all that together. But I need right now to get my reward money in the bank. Okay. Before I was hobby coaching, you know, and it really didn't matter if I made any money, but it does matter now big time. So what I need to do, what I want to do is learn how to shift into not being so with my creative, but following through and making it happen and taking my gifts and talents. I know I'm really good at what I do, but I need to get that into the marketplace. And does that make any sense?
I'm going to share back with you and you tell me if it makes any sense.
Okay.
Make sure that we're on the same
I
page.
don't know. That's why we're here.
All right. So you said that what you wanted to work on is showing up with confidence. Right now, you feel that your reward is through the work that you do, the creation, the learning, the planning. However, it's not income producing for you. And you feel that you have a lack of follow through. Is that right? Am I paraphrasing that the right way? Okay.
Yes, you are. Perfect.
So my question to you is, if So you said you wanted confidence and then you said you wanted money. How do those two go together for you?
Because I have to take risk and I have to go. And right now, I have narrowed it down since I am focusing on in neuroscience coaching. Then I need to my target audience, and I've just now narrowed this down and found out, okay, in marketing, we call this the bleeding neck pain points. Okay. And so I've realized now that where my talents could be best used and who needs me and who will pay me, and I don't have to go searching for clients, and drop off a client and be clientless, right? So I have decided to go into the medical profession, and specifically, I have pinpointed rehab, and specifically the director of nursing or the director of the rehab facility, because their decisions could be life or death. So I know that they need my services because I'm also one of my main things that I work with is professional burnout. So I show up at the nursing home and speak with the nursing director of the facility, and I talk about how burnout, how that to retain your client, to retain your top client, your top talent. My company is Top Talent Coaching. So to be able to retain your talent, you know, because if you don't, when a client, I mean, when one of your key people leaves, it takes 3 times their annual salary to replace that person. So I know that there's a need there, and but I'm taking a risk by showing up and being rejected, and it's but I know I'm good at what I do. I know I'm good at what I do. And it's just moving it forward.
Okay, so thank you for all of that. So you're very clear on who you want to serve, right? You want to serve the medical profession. You want to talk to them about burnout. You want to make sure they retain their staff. So that's everything that you want to do for them, right? You said for you, it was about confidence. So would you explain to me a little bit more how those tie together? Because you're also then saying you're really great at what you do.
This is more that the pressure is I'm not hobby coaching anymore. Before, my husband, I was married. I'm not married anymore. I've got to put money in the bank, whereas before I didn't. And it has to happen this time. I mean, I have to go and I have to require money for my services, where before I coached for free, and it didn't matter. And but now I have to ask for somebody to pay me for my talents when I'm usually just, okay, let's do it, let's. So now I'm having to ask for a different reward in a different venue rather than just getting the satisfaction from helping a person achieve their full potential and that transformational coaching there. So, and I don't know if that speaks to confidence, and it doesn't seem like it does. It doesn't seem like it speaks to confidence. It seems like it's lack of value in myself. I don't know what that is.
Okay, so stay right there with me, right? I want to ask you, how does it feel for you to have to pay for you to share this talent that you have?
It I don't know. I'm deserving because I've spent all of this money. I spent $10,000 on this neuroscience coaching program, but I don't know why that I don't feel deserving of the money. I don't get it.
Yeah. I get that. So where else have you ever felt like this before?
Well, I don't know. I may trace it back to probably what in my marriage. I was married to a narcissist. He's a covert narcissist. And I got to the point to where I literally felt invisible. I wrote it in my journal, I'm like, what the hell's wrong with me? It's not depression, it's not this, it's not that. I couldn't put a name to it. And when I took the neuroscience course, it specifically talked about professional burnout. Professional burnout is doing, and not getting rewarded. And there's other things, but not getting rewarded for my output. And so having to make the transition from not being seen to being seen and valued, because I wasn't valued in my marriage, and having and getting value, giving value and getting money, because I gave value in my marriage. I did. I tried. I took care of the kids. I took care of the home. Took care of the husband. I did all of this, and I don't even know where I am right now. But I never was rewarded there other than, I don't know, your turn.
I just want to give you a second here. Because I could tell that this is really upsetting to you.
It is, and it's very stressful because I'm running on fumes and I gotta make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what is that feeling right there?
Overwhelm, stress, not having money to pay my bills, and I'm all alone now. My ex quit paying alimony, and now he's taking me back to court. And it's so I have to get out there. I have to do this.
So at first I want to just acknowledge you for sharing that with me. I know it's not easy. And I could tell how much this troubles you, right? Like, it's clear that it's overwhelming, it's stressful. So you started this call saying that you wanted to show up with confidence. And now, you're still saying that you're deserving, that you bring value. But what is it that we can go through today that will provide you value for you so you can move forward confidently when you're interacting with your potential clients, if that's what you're still interested in discussing? You tell me.
I don't think I really understood the question, and maybe I'm just trying to dry up here.
No, I'm
like
just in
myself. I'm like, okay,
No.
Deanna, come back to yourself.
So what would best serve you today for us to chat about?
I don't know. I thought that I about what I didn't clear. I thought that I had clarified that to get my reward through not through the creative process, but through showing up, my services, and being paid money.
Okay. And then we went down a road about you feeling, for lack of a better word, lack of value. So for me, it's kind of a choice for you to make of what you'd like to focus on today.
Okay, and I'm still stuck. I'm sorry, I'm not understanding what I thought that I want to. Want to get out there, do it.
Okay. Okay. So what would it,
I'm sorry, this must be terrible for you.
no, not at all. No, no, I'm just bringing us right back here. So you have a lot of reasons for you to go out and put yourself out there. So what would you specifically like to walk away with tonight that would serve you at the end of the session?
Okay, mindset shift. What
And-
can I do to feel that I'm valuable now when I haven't felt valued for so long?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just this the easy thing is just get up and go out and do it. Duh. You know, that's just a big duh.
So your brain knows it.
What now? I'm
I
sorry.
said your brain knows, just go out there. But there's clearly something stopping you. And you've been saying that is feeling deserving, valued. What is it there that's there for you?
Well, actually, what I really need to do is create new neural pathways to be able to change my knee-jerk reaction, my traditional thinking to create with neuroplasticity to be able to create those new neural pathways of success. And instead of being so much in the creative process, to be able to create the new neural pathways that would give me the neurochemical rewards of being able to get that reward by taking my talents into the marketplace to be able to get my reward by delivering my services to somebody who wants to pay me for my services. Did that answer your question? Probably not.
So let's do this another way. You walk into a client's office, you tell them, these are my services. This is how much I charge. Would you like to work together? And they say yes. How would you feel?
Okay, now we're changing everything. I would feel valued. I feel happy. I would feel like all of this. I've been coaching since 2010. Okay. And to go in and go, okay, this is what I do, and this is what I can help you with, and it's measurable, and this is science, it's not woo-woo, you can go and I can show, we got the studies, and I'm speaking to somebody who has the same, who understands my terminology. With the neuroscience and in the medical profession, you can talk that kind of language, but you can't talk that language to anybody else because they don't understand it. Oh, so I've chosen this target audience, this target market, and to be able to walk in and them understand me and me understand how much value that I could bring them. Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
So what do you need to do in order to do that?
I need a plan.
So what would
I
a
need a,
plan?
go ahead.
Sorry. No, sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
You did it. You did it. I would need a plan of resilience, of perseverance, of determination, of not taking it so personal, because it's a sales process. You call on X amount of people, and you, for instance, call on 7 businesses, and get three needs discovery sessions and one client. You get one client through that. So, and I know that those are numbers that are very realistic. And so my plan for resilience, I guess maybe more have okay, so I've got a basic script, a sales script. So that would give me confidence. And I have the coaching process set up for session 1, 2, 3, and the valuation and locus of control, and intrinsic and external motivation factors, so so I've got that process. So I don't know what the heck my problem is.
Okay.
So what would motivate me? Money obviously doesn't, or else I would just be showing up and doing it. So what else is there other than, but the money's the factor. The money's the focus. The money's the stress.
Mhm.
So how do I get out of that money stress? And clients can smell that desperation a million miles away. That is desperate. Okay, now maybe that's what it is. My desperation, and how to get out of the desperation mode so that I'm just flowing, and that's, and happy, and don't give a rip if they do it or not. I'll just show up to the next, because there's so many rehab centers, where I am, and I'm in the Quad Cities, and there's like 4 little cities around. And so it's just a numbers game. Why do I have to take it so personal? I don't want to have to take it personal, because sales is not personal. So why is it so personal if I get rejected? Because I'm so used to it? Because I don't want it anymore? Because I've had so much of it?
Would you say that's true?
Yes, because part of professional burnout, which was what I discovered that I was in back in early 2022, top of 23, when I realized it was professional burnout, then I knew that people that are in professional burnout, they really take criticism very hard. They take it harder than anybody else. And so maybe that's part of it. And now that I have worked through and understand what was wrong with me and what was causing all of this feeling invisible, because I didn't get reward for my work. So I'm used to not getting reward for my work. That's my comfort zone. Do it, coach for free. Come on, let's have, because I love it. So what did I just say? Getting reward for, did you hear what I just said? I kind of lost it.
I did. You were talking about you're in a desperation mode around money, and that you, in the realm of burnout, you've shown that people take things criticism personally, and that in the past you have felt invisible. And that in order for you to be comfortable in providing your services, you would just give it away for free.
And I can't do that anymore. And I
So
shouldn't have done it to begin with. Shouldn't have
That-
done it to begin with.
So what can we create? How can we approach this differently this time?
Well, that's a really good question. Since I'm free and I'm happy now and I'm almost 3 years out of divorce right now, and I understand my condition, and what was the question? What can I do differently this time, right? I can show up in my authority. I can show up with authority in what I do, feeling, because I love this stuff. I've always been fascinated with Think and Grow Rich, the power of the brain, positive thinking, but now that I've got this special skill of understanding the things, and I don't want to go down that route, but what can I do to show up differently like this to make a mindset shift? Oopsie, mindset shift of, instead of limited belief, growth mindset. So getting into a growth mindset would mean that I would be logical rather than emotional, rather than desperation, own these 7 coaching certification, and own what I really am, and get out of my emotions and stay into logic, logistics, create the plan of call on X amount of rehab centers per day, take my emotion out of it, and just work the numbers. That sounds easy enough, doesn't it? Just work the numbers, because I really truly believe I've been in sales. I sold insurance when I was first, as a young adult. You can sell insurance, you can sell anything. So, and I do understand the sales process and stuff. So,
we have 5 minutes left.
okay, I'm sorry. I'm just like blabbering on.
No, don't apologize. So this is the thing. You started this conversation saying that you wanted to feel comfortable. I mean, you wanted to feel confident in providing your services to other people. And throughout our discovery, you said it's a numbers game and not to take it personally.
And that's
So-
true. It really is true.
So in the moments where you're taking it personally, what can you say to yourself to get you back to that positive mindset of it's a numbers game and it's not personal? I am deserving, I am valuable. What I have to offer will change lives.
Just right there, write it down. That's what I can say to myself is I'm in the real world now, providing for myself, but to stay out of desperation mode, to stay out of my emotions and in my expertise would be to put on my big girl panties and do it, if you will, right? Is to go, okay, well, make out the plan to call an X amount per day, follow up, follow through, and get my reward from showing up. Number one, baby steps. Just get my reward from showing up, whether they pay me any money or not. I showed up, home run, touchdown.
So how are you going to hold yourself accountable?
I don't know. Just do it.
Would you need some outside support?
maybe I could do that through peer coaching here, you know, and or not. I know my friends, I've got two awesome best friends, you know, and they support me and they do this and they're always encouraging me and all of this. So, but I need somebody to be tougher on me. I need somebody to be tougher on me and expect more of me and me expect more of myself. So just find someone to I don't know. The only thing I can think of is just take my emotions out of it, make the plan, not worry, not feel desperate anymore. Just know that just know that it's going to happen when I work the numbers.
Okay, so you just did a good job at really going through and summarizing our call. So you said that at the start of this that you wanted to show up more confident, and you came up with these different ways on how you could show up with your client. So would you say that we were successful today in achieving that?
Yes, I would, because I don't feel so tearful. I don't feel so desperate anymore. And I feel like that when I take my emotions out of it, when I really own my expertise, then I can show up confident and work the numbers.
Yeah.
Easy
Yeah.
as pie, right?
Yeah. So, you know, we don't have time to do this in today's session, but if I could just leave you with one thing.
Yes, what?
I mean, you do have so much value that you bring. And it's clear that you know the work, right? So keep really loving on yourself and showing yourself that you are valuable and you are deserving. Are you willing to do that?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks for your
Yeah.
time today.
Thank you. You've done a wonderful job.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you.
Sorry to rush.
No, it's class.
All right, thank you both. Everybody can come back on. And so I'm going to ask you guys to give me 5 minutes and just let's go through the call real quickly. Let's see, who did I assign? Just give me one in your competency from the assignments that I gave you. So let's start with Christine, you had 3.
I don't think we got to a measure of success, but I loved this session so much. And what I did notice that on the focus and outcome, I think that there was a real struggle getting to that focus and outcome. But I think Lori did a phenomenal job working through to get to that. She starts with, what do you want to focus on today? She completely paraphrased, and then she worded it again a little different. And then at 6:42, she chunked down. At 6:44, what specifically do you want to walk away with that'll serve you? And then she moved on at 6:47 to literally providing her the scenario that she needed to be able to visualize. And then it just moved on from there. And then Deanna lit up and was like, okay. And that's where I think that's where the focus and the outcome took off. I can't even say how much I love this session. Thank you, Lori. That's it.
Okay, great, thanks. So for 4, I think there was, a lot of support and empathy throughout, and I think that Lori acknowledged how Deanna was expressing herself, the different terms that she used, and her language, which was great. And then invites to respond and accept. She did that a couple times. I think that a couple of the, one or two were a little bit confusing on her end and or on Deanna's end, but yeah, but I think it was done. And then 5, is that me too? Yeah, so 5, I think Lori coached the person. I think she coached the agenda for what she had, but she didn't have a full agenda because she didn't have a full coaching agreement. So I think that actually wound up hurting a lot of the, or some of the not a lot of them, but it hurt a good amount of the competencies and the actual marker, each marker. So, when we talk about coaching the agenda, that's really our coaching agreement. Are we staying on track with it? Are we working towards that outcome? And we did finally get to having a plan, but I think the topic, and I know you tried to get that topic a little bit more clear, I think it was a little murky. And then we didn't really know what the importance was there and where Deanna wanted to start. I think there was a little leading as far as the starting go. But anyway, so when you don't have a really strong agreement, coaching the agenda becomes murky. I think you invited client choice definitely by saying, what is it that you want to get out of it? How do we start? Like, how do we get there? And then you were curious about the client. There was a little bit of over talking. This was a quick session, so I think that played into it as well, not giving as much space as you normally would. Okay, I'll come back with a little bit. Go ahead.
I definitely felt rushed.
Yeah, I felt
Because
it from both of you. Yeah.
Right? Like
You're watching the
I
clock.
literally just sat there watching the clock getting closer to 9, and then I was like, I'm gonna keep everybody over, and I'm like, how can I kind of like funnel this down and like stay present with her and like, and I felt like I tried to get, do you want to talk about the confidence in the work or do you want to talk about the personal stuff? And I felt the longer I stayed in it, the longer the session was gonna go, and so you're right. I was just like, okay, she wants to focus on the work stuff, then we'll go there. And I just kind of dropped the rest.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about how to potentially work through that. But let's go to 6, Val.
Yeah, so I'm echoing and it's driving me crazy. Sorry. Exploring words, you wanted us to give one example from our stuff here. 6.2, it's a numbers game, don't take it personally. I thought that was great to reflect that back.
Yeah, good. I had that noted as well. 7, Marcy.
Yeah, so I had a few good ones, but I thought where she asked, where else have you felt this way before, when she talked about feeling unworthy? I thought that was, really kind of trying to expand for her. She also asked her at one point, how does it feel for you to get paid for what you do? So asking that open-ended question. And then how would you feel if you said this is what I charge and they said yes? I thought that was really narrowing, and I thought that was a really good question. But all of those kind of funneled into that, so it wasn't like, I feel like she owned that space getting to that question.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that was a huge awareness question, and that it prompted forward movement much more so than any other question, I think. Okay, great, thank you. And then 8, Kim.
Okay, so explores progress, 8.1. Yeah, so she asked, were we successful at achieving that, like showing up? And she mentioned she didn't feel desperate anymore. And then 8.4, applying new learning. And so Lori would just asked about, how, what she has, to offer that changes lives. I'm not sure if that was applying new learning or not. But I wasn't sure where to put that one, but,
Yeah.
yeah, and then 8.6. So she mentioned about, like outside supports.
Mhm.
And then 8.7, accountability. How are you going to hold yourself accountable? And yeah, so celebrating and champion, like keep loving yourself and you're valued and deserving.
Okay, thanks. Okay, a couple things. I do want to talk about the accountability piece because this showed up in both sessions. Remember, we want to ask the more general question. What kind of support do you need to follow through or to be sure that you do what you say you're going to do versus asking, if they can hold, if they will hold themselves accountable or if they need somebody to hold them accountable, right? The accountability piece, we don't want to pigeonhole them into either of those options. We just want to say, what kind of support? Like, what is it that they need? They might say, well, I'm going to make a list and put it on my fridge so I pass it every day. Or I'm going to, reach out to my girlfriend, or whatever. So we want the clients to choose what that looks like to them. Now, ongoing clients, you're going to have a good idea what that is, right? Because you'll get used to what they want. And you can even ask that in your onboarding. How do you normally like to be held accountable? And then you'll know. But this is in general for somebody that you haven't explored that with. That's how you're going to ask that question. So that's going to, just kind of remember that going forward. And then again, I think we're going back to the coaching agreement again. Making sure that we have a specific topic and an outcome. And I know that there was some exploration done around that, and it got a little confusing. And it got confusing, I think, for Deanna as well, for the client. So we want to try and get that really clear for both parties, right? For us as the coach and for the client. And so I think something just to try is that, Deanna said what she was feeling around the topic. And I think that's what Lori was picking up on and was saying, okay, we have this feeling, but now what is the actual topic? So instead of saying, how you framed it, what I would do is would reframe the whole thing and say, okay, I understand that this is how you're feeling and this is what you want to feel, or this is the outcome that you want. But when you think about that, what specifically needs to be addressed in order for that to happen? So we're not saying, oh, well, you're talking too broadly, or you're talking about feelings, or you're doing this. Like, we're not labeling it, but we're saying, like, that seems like that's a lot to me. So what's the down to the wire type thing that we need to really focus on in order for you to feel that way, or in order for you to accomplish that? So helping the client to see that we understand that this is a multi-layered, right? But we want to help you really get clear on it by peeling back all that stuff and get to the bottom root. What is it that's going to take? What's it going to take in order for you to, walk away with that? What is it that we have to focus on and get a very specific, specific topic with a measurable outcome?
And the one thing that came up for me when I was trying to get that solid was that at one point it was like, I need money. And then at the one point it was like, I don't feel worthy. And then
You said, how does that connect?
Yeah. And then I
You
felt
asked
that
that
when I asked that question, and I don't know if it's truth, but it's like what came to me was that she didn't want to talk about the worthiness piece, that she wanted to keep going back to the money. And that's why I just let it go. So I don't know if that was true. So, you know what I mean?
Well, and that's the other piece, right? Like, there was some emotions going on here that we probably just didn't have time to explore. But for instance, right from the beginning, I think it was after your second or third question, Deanna made a really big sigh and just like a kind of thing, right? And that, just from today's lesson, that's something that we want to explore, because that can help us to determine, or help us to determine our question, to explore that so the client can determine the topic or the outcome or whatever it's bringing that up.
So if I could do that over, I wouldn't wait, because I noticed it and then like I kind of wanted to just, and so I think the learning I have here is when you see it, do it right away.
Yeah, because it's tough to come back to. So that's why we want to do those things in the moment. But you have asked some really great open-ended questions. Most of them are open-ended questions. You did a good job there. You know, and I feel like, again, that for the most part, you covered like the surface level of it all, and it's really just getting on the deeper side of it for PCC. But you asked some really great questions, and then you had the feedback from everybody else. But really, the coaching agreement, I think, is the start of everything.
And I knew I didn't have it.
Yeah.
Like I knew it. And so I was just like, okay, do I dig, like,
I'm gonna
honestly,
work through it anyway.
it was like, do I dig deep? Like, do I dig deeper and just kind of maybe it'll show up later was kind of the stand that I ended up taking. And then I also had the time. So lesson learned.
Yeah. Okay. All right, guys, thanks for hanging in late. Next week we are
All right.
starting on time. So please show up, especially you know, if you don't want to miss any of the lesson. So I will upload, you'll see the next 4 chapters coming up, getting uploaded, so you'll download those. And then if you have any questions, you can message me or email me or what have you. But other than that, have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Lori.